Cool. Slajdi so tudi ok, se vidi v redu. Ok, minutka še. Sedem? Se slišimo? Ok. Mislim, da smo. Okay. So since we have some Erasmus students here, we'll have this presentation also in English. Hopefully you can hear me well and you can see me well. If you don't, please write to the Discord channel as soon as possible, so we will be able to tackle the problems. This is our first lab session. During the next sessions, also our UX expert Amedea will be with us. She unfortunately couldn't come today due to weather conditions, but we'll make the best of it. So, the first lab session is held also in person and also via live streaming. And if you have any questions during this time, you can also write them down into Discord channel, and we'll make sure we check Discord channel regularly. So if there's any questions with the audience on the other side of our Free TV channel, please make sure you paste the questions into the workshop channel on Discord, and we'll be able to answer it. So before we start, we also discussed this during the lectures. What is our goal for this second part of the course? We will make an upgraded version of an app, a prototype, but we will not go into the code, the implementation itself, okay? Our final goal will be a prototype made in Figma. Today we'll use FigJam, which is also an add-on or part of Figma. And during the next few lab sessions, we'll work more thoroughly with these tools. These tools are also, in a way, very common within the also designer teams and also implementation engineering teams, so they can efficiently communicate when they make a prototype and then make a pixel perfect design, and then they want to transfer this design to a specific new version of the app. Of course, before we start, I hope you all read through the brief descriptions of the projects on Učilnica. How many of you have done it? None? Okay. Project descriptions on Učilnica.
How many projects?
Four. 4 projects were there, yeah. Okay. If you read through the descriptions, you probably know what they're about. Okay, great. So Erasmus students tend to read links posted on Učilnica, while maybe Slovenian students not that much. But don't worry, please do that today. I will also write a brief email after this lab session about it. The idea is we have 4 community-oriented projects, and the descriptions also contain a lot of assumptions, a lot of hypotheses which are made by me but not necessarily correct, okay? And we'll see how we can test that, how we can explore and discover what the actual problems are, and how we can address them maybe through some of these applications. First, we'll do a brief exercise. This is also for all of you viewing us on live streaming, because it will help you tackle the issues which we're going to discuss also within our projects. If we start with great versus bad design, you probably use a lot of different apps. You use Facebook app, you use Twitter or X or whatever. You use Instagram, yeah, 1, 2, yeah, maybe. Snapchat, no. TikTok. Okay, you have all the apps, and what kind of apps are you using? Like, what's your favorite app for whatever?
Discord.
Okay, Discord. Okay, this is something we're also using here. Okay. Anything else? Like, it doesn't need to be like a communications app. It can be YouTube. Okay. You have basically a bunch, like tens of apps already installed in your phone when you buy a new phone, but then later on you add a bunch of different other apps. So, okay, maybe we'll shorten this a bit to about 12 minutes. During the last session, we figured out we might want to discuss what kind of stuff you wrote, and we wrote some good and bad examples on this board. Don't look at it. Maybe I'll just delete it first. Since there's 5 of you, maybe you can go into groups of 3 and 2 and discuss what kind of apps you're using and what kind of good versus bad user experience you have. I'll open briefly an example. Let's start with 2 apps, okay? You probably use more than 2 apps, but maybe take 2 apps you commonly use. It could be music streaming, it could be communications app, it could be app for viewing stuff, or maybe exploring, searching, anything, okay? And maybe you could come here, work with him. You could join these 2 guys. And also for you who are viewing us over live stream, please open a FigJam, and you can basically draw with your mouse. You can use your tablet, your PC, your touchscreen, your mobile phone, and just provide some insights into what you're using. You can do screenshots. You can just write or maybe circle out different things which are good, which are bad, considering the user experience. Okay, let's go. For those who are following us online, you can post your FigJam links into Discord, and we can also discuss them. Yeah.
If assessments for our works is available now or no? Because
Sorry?
we make works and other assessments we haven't.
For the project? For
Yeah.
the second? No, you just choose one of those 4
Yeah.
topics and you work on one of them
Yeah.
throughout this half of the semester.
Yeah, I know about it, but the for last project
Yeah.
we have assessments no, because I have any something like A, B, or C for my project before it.
You probably have to discuss this with Professor Bulzon.
Okay.
Okay? And she will also give you a grade for that part of the semester, and I'll give you for the second part, and the final grade is a combination of those 2.
Okay. Do we have exam or is just
No,
we
no,
made a
no.
project? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you attend the lectures last Thursday?
No, for visit.
Yeah. I had like the first 15, 20 minutes I had in English just to address these aspects of the course.
I thought it was for our last project, something like it's consultation. I thought about it.
Okay, okay. Yeah, but yeah, you can still be within the same group if you have probably you have a group from the first half of the semester. You can retain the same group. You just work on different projects, and we're gonna focus on these more technical aspects. Maybe not that much graphical design, but we'll also touch on topics of user experience and how to explore solutions and how to explore problems, get insights, get to the solutions, and then figure out how to make a good product which actually solves the problem which we tackle.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and you should discuss. You can talk about it. You can discuss about it. What kind of apps?
Descriptions are here. PC.
An open FigJam, and you can do like a short SketchUp also on your mobile phone, because these computers which are in this classroom actually with their default browser, which is outdated, don't support FigJam at the moment, which we just figured out during the last lab session. So we'll have to address this with our IT. But ja, samo da pošeram link. Bom pastal tudi link do tega. There you go. Faco link sem pastal v workshop vaje kanal. Tako da ga lahko od bliže pogledate. Gledamo pa levi del. Good versus bad user experience. Zelo enostavno pogovarjamo se basically o tem, kateri so api, ki jih poznamo, da so dobri, da so slabi z vidika uporabniške izkušnje. Mogoče jih bomo par napisali na tablo, tako da prosim, če imate idejo, kar napišite v Discord channel, bomo tudi vaše upoštevali, pa jih pisali po tabli. Na zadnjih vajah nas je bilo cirka 15, pa smo imeli v bistvu en kup takih parov dobrih in slabih idej. Cool. Mogoče, glede na to, da veliko ljudi zdaj gleda tole Figmo, pa tudi live streamamo, isti view, ne preveč plesati z miškami po samem screenu. Okay. We'll just have a few more minutes, and please, also everybody who's joining us via live stream, you can write down examples of good and bad. You just write good and name the app and maybe the reason, maybe we'll discuss it, and a bad app, like there's no bad app, but all the apps are bad in a way. And you can think outside the box. You don't need to focus just on like Discord, which we mentioned, or maybe communications applications, whatever you're using. The most interesting ideas were about Google Calendar and Google Maps actually during the last session. So apparently we use them a lot, but we don't think of them as good or bad because we're just used to them being the only ones which we usually use. Which can also be an opportunity in terms of what kind of solutions you're looking for for your own product. Okay. Since this is a smaller group, maybe we can address the people who are here first. What's an example of good user experience?
App?
Yeah.
YouTube.
YouTube, okay. YouTube is good, okay. Why? What's so good about it?
You have all the videos in one place and it's easy to use.
Okay.
So if you see a video you like, you just press on it and it takes you to the video.
Do you like its recommendation?
Yeah, most of the time they're fine.
Okay. What's the rest of the time? What's problematic with it?
Well, sometimes the recommendations are too random, so
Too much novelty actually.
yeah,
Or
sometimes.
okay.
Um,
Do you use it for listening to music or just watching videos?
Sometimes I do.
What happens when you listen to music on it? Is it too novel, too random, or do you have any other issues with?
Actually, for music, it's quite good. But
Okay. Awesome. What's the example of bad user experience app?
Can takes a lot of time.
Which app? Which app are you describing?
TikTok.
TikTok. Okay, it's bad. Okay.
Sometimes good when you're bored in any situation or one.
Okay.
If you have a little time, it's bad because it takes a lot of time. So you can tap the video on TikTok for 2 hours.
So it takes a lot of productive time away, but
Yeah.
okay. So is it bad in terms of user experience for what's intended to do, or is it bad in terms of you know that you should probably spend the time in a different way?
It's bad in the reason that is you should spend a lot of time because if you want to make a nice video and it's have a big chance that you have recommendations and your video see a lot of students, a lot of people use a lot and it's nice
Okay.
because you can make creative video.
Okay.
But in other sense it's bad because you spend a lot of time.
You spend a lot of time for making a creative video. So okay, it could be more a streamlined process to do videos. Okay, that's interesting. I don't use TikTok. I'm old, boomer. So I use Messenger, Facebook, and stuff that your parents use usually, right? Do you use Facebook? One. Okay, but you use all the services. So we know that you might be an outlier in this group. Other people around you said they don't use Facebook, so yeah, maybe that's the issue. Maybe I should do TikTok videos for lab sessions. 2-minute stops, right? And it would take me a lot of time, and I would put it under bad user experience. Yeah. How about your group?
Personally, I'd make a counterpoint for YouTube being a bad user experience.
Okay, YouTube is bad.
Yes, of course.
Okay, this marker is bad. Just a sec. YouTube is bad and YouTube is good for somebody. Okay.
So the reason I make the argument that it's bad is the copious amounts of ads, both before a video videos in the middle of videos.
Okay.
End of videos.
Okay. This is videos, this is ads.
Yes.
Okay, and you're not willing to pay for the service of having ads-free
No, I think
service.
it's kind of too expensive for what it is. As such, I just use an ad block, which fixes the issue for me.
Does it still?
Yeah, if you use, wait, let me check.
Okay, so you have a workaround.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're, uBlock Origin.
Okay, but if there are no ads, is YouTube good or bad user experience in terms of recommendation, in terms of the content?
Mostly good.
Okay.
You still get the ads that are inbaked into the video from the creators, which is fair enough. They need to make
Okay,
money.
so this is like a referral link to something. Okay,
But normally it's good.
but you use YouTube for videos, not for music,
I
or
use it for both, actually. Oh, I used to use it for music, but I've stopped recently since I've switched to Spotify.
okay.
Um,
So where would you put Spotify in this case?
good because of the amount of the content, bad because it doesn't pay the creators that post on it enough, and bad because of the ads.
Okay,
So
so it's okay in different aspects. So okay, and you would probably be willing to pay more if they fixed the ad prior to, or
And, pay
yeah,
their,
probably this willingness to pay is
yeah, I mean, I'd be
theoretical
willing
at
to
this
pay
point.
Their creators more, and if they just,
Okay, I get it. Yeah. What's the example of a good app then for you guys? Moi Aena. So this is an app for our foreign students. This is an app for checking the status of your local operator ISP slash. Okay, what's it, do you use it like regularly on a daily basis?
no, but for checking some info.
Okay, what kind of information are you checking with Moi Aena? Like people from Aena would be really pleased to hear this, but yeah, because of course they are tackling this issue with getting the information to the user, and usually the users use apps or their services to gather information when something's not working, right? So they are they would be really pleased to hear this.
For checking,
Okay, so contractual obligations and okay. So if you buy a phone, you have like a 2-year contractual obligation to. Okay. Okay. So you use it on a monthly basis, let's say. Okay. Any other suggestions for good or bad user experience?
Good, I would say Travana.
Travana, okay.
And bad, I would say študentska prehrana.
Travana, študentska prehrana. Okay. We had a lot of music streaming services examples during the last session. In your case, I guess you're not using them that, like one person is using Spotify, but yeah. Študentska prehrana. Okay, what's going on there?
Some of the colors, color contrasts are not really well. For example, when you open it.
Okay, so we have a design problem. We have UI user interface problem, I guess. Also, yeah.
And for example, also if you open the app, the first time you open the app, if you don't have the location services enabled, it will first flash you that you have to enable them, and only then you can click no thanks.
Okay.
Then you can use the NFC or the call function.
Okay. So if you're already a registered user, you wanna pay, I guess, with an app. Or use the Bon, right? Okay, you have to go through the procedure of getting a notification that your service, like location services, are disabled, and then you have to cancel that notification before you can get to the screen where you just want to use the NFC to, go through the process of paying for lunch. Okay, that's interesting. Do we have any? Oh yeah, we have some suggestions. Bad. Any website from the 90s. This was posted by Rosman. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe we could discuss this if you're in person, because Websites from the 90s might be really flashy, but compared to these new age websites, you actually knew what the button was. And with the new websites, we go into this Apple design where every button might be a label or might be a button or might be both or maybe none of that. And maybe in terms of clarification of the user interface, could be debatable how the websites from the 90s are or aren't good or bad. Of course, we had, 10, 15, 20 years of progress in terms of page loading, in terms of animations. Of course, maybe if you meant Flash websites, yeah, I can see a problem there. But most of you maybe never used Flash. A lot of websites were built this way 15, 20 years ago. So if you're addressing that, Roseman, maybe that. Yeah, I completely agree with you. All right. So, on today's agenda, we have a design process. We'll figure out how we can go through, let's say, more of a product design than just graphic design itself. We'll tackle the discovery versus implementation. Although the topics I posted on Učilnica are, in a way, already part of the implementation, we'll go back, we'll take a step back, and we'll try and figure out what kind of problems there are, first of all. I wrote a description which has a lot of maybe my personal hypothesis about what could be done or should be done with the apps in terms of design, in terms of functionalities, which you can maybe at this point imagine they are already implemented and they just need to be used or brought to the front end. But of course, these are my hypotheses. It's not necessary that all of these are true. And then we'll discuss the interviews, which is in a way a bit of an underrated approach to gathering information about the users, about your potential target audience, let's say. And we'll also have a brief exercise at the end. So if we first take a look at how do companies innovate, this part where we look at a lot of numbers and do a lot of thinking is done by a lot of people. This is also something which might lead to a thing which I usually call kolektivna neodgovornost, so collective unresponsibility, where a lot of people tackle a lot of numbers, a lot of different aspects, a lot of different solutions. Then they have an awesome idea, and then they go and plan and figure out how this new idea can be integrated into their own processes, how to lessen the risk. So they do some risk assessment because they're usually putting a lot of money into it. And this basically means we don't want to spend that money and get no result. And at the end, let's implement and let's make even more money. But of course, in reality, the picture is a bit different. Let's start with two phases. First, building the right thing, and then building it the right way. First, what should be done, let's say, is a lot of qualitative and quantitative research, a lot of experience within the company or within the company's clients, if they're tackling their specific issues or supporting their processes. And of course, we gather a lot of insights. So an insight would be something where we figure out, we have a farmer who daily deals with some bureaucracy. Can we figure out a solution to that process, because their time would be better spent farming, working on something more productive than spending time on a thing they usually spend, let's say, 2 hours a day. Okay? Or on the other hand, in terms of Autolog, people are buying used cars. How can we help them to lessen this burden of a process of buying a used car, figuring out whether this is the right car for me, or maybe supporting the process of buying a car, so contracts, technical inspections, and so on. Or maybe inform the user, do they actually need the car? So we have a lot of different aspects and a lot of different assumptions, and you don't narrow yourself down at this point but you gather a lot of information and then narrow it down into specific, maybe let's say categories of insights, where you figure out, oh, this might be a huge problem, and if we tackle it, we can get a huge satisfaction from the user, and maybe the user is at the end willing to pay for this service. Of course, if their productivity increases, maybe they're willing to spend some money on that. And of course, you can see this shape, this diamond shape, going on and on and on. And you've probably seen it before or heard about it before, or maybe you work at a company which already does this kind of process. Of course, the second thing, building the right way might also be an issue. Is this an internal team? Is this an external team? Is this a team which actually knows our needs? Is this a team which might also help us during this part? You have a lot of agencies that do that. And your position within a year when you graduate, or maybe within 2 years if you go to masters, will be somewhere in between working, developing, managing a project, or maybe working for a company which manages or helps with a project for another big company. This is quite usual for people or our students already during their, I would say, undergraduate years to start working for such companies. So you might have seen this. The process from design thinking to product design, I would say, actually encapsulates the idea that we can methodologically support this way of, or this path of going through from a problem, looking for a problem, actually identifying a problem to the solution. Usually, a lot of people come with a solution. And you've probably had this experience before. Somebody calls you and says, oh, you know your way around the computers. I would like to figure out where in the printer settings is this and that specific thing. But they're not describing their problem to you. They're describing their most probable solution in their mind, how to figure out some specific thing within a specific, very narrow question, right? And we do a lot of this stuff all the time, even when you are giving out homeworks during different lectures. Come back with a solution. Don't ask too many questions. We know what's good for you, in a way, right? Today I had this experience with one of our colleagues who came to our lab and said, oh, can I borrow a stapler? Okay, so what's his problem? Is his problem that he doesn't have a stapler? Not really. His problem was that he printed out some papers. He came all the way back to our lab and asked, oh, yeah, I don't have a stapler. Could you borrow? Like, could you lend me one, right? The problem is that he was at the printer, not figuring out that there's a stapler built in the printer. Okay? So if his initial question was, oh, how can I staple this? It would be much different than, can I borrow a stapler? Okay, I'm just responding to your direct solution, giving you whatever you need. And of course, a lot of times we build something and then say, oh, let's find a problem for that, of course, right? That's the easiest part. Oh, I have an app. I have an app which shows the vacancy spots for bike sharing. This is like a typical thing I've given you. I've given, in a way, a bit of a solution to you, but it's not necessarily the correct one. These are my assumptions, these aren't your assumptions, and these are assumptions for you to confirm if you want to tackle these specific assumptions. But you should go and look way broader at the beginning and then figure out what the problem actually is. And then what the solution is, of course. In a way, what I forgot to mention at the beginning, we will not implement, right, the code at the end. But this part of the process which we're working on is usually not being done, as you know, for all your seminars to this faculty, for all the stuff you've done so far. You start with the solution. And we want to take a step back and say, okay, let's go and now start thinking about it and then go into this process, and we can do this methodologically. So you've probably seen this double diamond before at some other course at this faculty, or it's been very popular in the last 5-10 years, right? We usually like go and say, okay, we have something, and then let's develop. And then we, yeah, in a way figure out, maybe we should do some related work. Maybe we should figure out whether there are apps on the market which do the exact same thing which we want to do. Because, of course, at this point, we have this community-oriented topics this year. But, of course, when you go and work for a company, they will want to monetize at a specific point because this pays for your salary also, right? And we don't want to mess with this process because, of course, if we go and meddle about, then we'll have a lot of issues with the money coming in, maybe the project being prolonged, maybe working on a solution which is not a solution at all. We have to start here. And in a way, I've made it a bit harder because I already have given you descriptions which might be somewhere around here. And you have to take this step back and say, okay, let's first discover what's going on, okay? And then define the insights, the problems, and then figure out what kind of problems we're gonna solve, okay? A lot of features which are already in, or maybe I've described them in the project description are like, oh, I would love to see this. I think it would work. Yeah, maybe for me, but not for the other 10,000 people who use this app, all right? You have to figure out also what your target audience is for this specific problem. Maybe you're tackling a problem which is only for you and me and nobody else. Maybe you have a product which you're trying to sell to a wrong target audience in a way, right? And then go and develop different features and figure out what MVP is and figure out the monetization and so on. And of course, you can see, as Amedea usually says, the digital product is never done, okay? So at the end, when we get to the release, we'll have bugs. We'll have feature requests. We'll figure out that we can monetize a different aspect of an app which we haven't thought about even though we went through this, and we'll go through this again, okay? We'll try and explore and determine what the insights are and then figure out how to implement this. So in terms of like spaces, we can call this part the problem space, right? We are trying to figure out what the problems are. We're trying to get the most information we can. And at the end, of course, we want to narrow it down to specific problems which are more well-defined than just saying, oh, this process of buying a used car is such a pain in the ass. Yeah, why? Okay, let's figure it out. And Autolog was maybe by accident made in such a way that it's solving a bunch of problems for people buying used cars with the odometer manipulation and so on. But the problem was that the data was there 5 years before we made the app. It was publicly available. It's still publicly available. You can download it. So the app was actually just solving how to bring this data to a user so they don't need to go through a CSV file which has like multiple gigabytes in size and just figure out, oh, this is my VIN number. That's my odometer from the previous owner. And that's how many owners the car had. Another example, if you took a look at Autolog, for example, is the mobile application. The mobile application does nothing else besides showing a web view of the website, okay? But it has a really nice feature. Most of the people don't know how to type in a VIN number. A VIN number is the number you have on the dashboard, you have inside the car doors, you have on your license or registration papers, you have on your technical inspection list and so on, okay? The problem is that a lot of people are not really keen on typing in 17 different letters and numbers, and they make a lot of mistakes. So what we did is you have an OCR and just click on it. It's the most stupid app ever made, but it has like 13,000 active devices at the moment. So it kind of solves a problem, but the problem of checking kilometers wasn't just bringing the data to the user, it was also bringing them a way how to actually type in a very basic 17-digit number, which shouldn't be that hard, but of course it is for a lot of people because the numbers are a bit smaller, or maybe it's not that clear, or maybe we're just being human and making errors. On the other hand, when we get to the solution space, we also have to figure out that, what kind of tools we're using to build this, what kind of methodologies we're using, what kind of technologies we're using, and so on. And we can go and see what kind of features we're going to implement but at some specific point, we're going to have to figure out, oh, yeah, this is a release. And you'll have this issue with your problem, probably, even with the prototype. When you go into this implementation, you'll work with Figma, you'll figure out a lot of these different things you can do with the apps, you can achieve, and then all of a sudden you'll figure out, but do I really need this, you know? How do I know? You can always go back to the insights and see what kind of problem am I using, or am I actually solving with this specific feature, right? A lot of these stories with startups such as Airbnb, you can read about them online. You'll have a lot of information about what they did before they became so successful with a specific application. And you will see they will pivot through different, like they will have an application before they had it before the Airbnb. It did something similar, but in a different aspect. And then they slowly pivoted to the part where it became, you know, very successful and made a lot of money for a lot of people, right? Of course, in terms of that part, you also need to understand that people or investors don't buy products necessarily, they buy teams, they buy people, right? So if you know how to do this properly, the next thing you'll do in 2 years will also be successful, probably even more, because you'll have more experience, you'll know what kind of traps you can have here, what kind of traps you had here because you did some product and you had, maybe the product was prolonged, the technology that was wrong. Maybe you had a hammer, somebody who knows only specific stack, and then you use that hammer and figured out that this was negatively impacting your project, and so on. And this goes on and on and on. It's never done. Of course, it's also necessary to, in a way, mention the monetary aspect of development. We're currently here, we're discovering. It costs us nothing. You'll ask a few people, you'll figure out how to ask them, you'll figure out what kind of information you want to gather, you'll figure out what kind of problems you're tackling, you'll go into insights. When you go into implementation, even maybe if we have another line here and say, if we go to the design itself, it's still relatively cheap. You can work in Figma, somebody goes and figures out that, sorry? Photoshop, yeah, let's say a lot of people are maybe in web and mobile apps are using Figma because you can do pixel perfect designs, which you can transfer more easily and you can communicate more easily with the designer team and developer team via Figma. But we used to use Photoshop, yeah, for websites, maybe 5-10 years ago even. But it's still relatively cheap because it's not implemented. You don't have a whole system behind it. When you go into implementation, yeah, we can, you know, talk about different features, maybe canceling them out or maybe adding new, but it's also very important to realize that if you don't go back and look at your insights and have this in mind, what kind of problem you're solving, you can very easily go into your own biased mode where you are actually solving just your own personal problems through this and not maybe the problems of the target audience. And of course, when you go to the release, it becomes really, really expensive, especially with maybe downtime, problems with the missing features, maybe features which cannot be monetized, and so on. And of course, hour of programmer, like if they want to change something, maybe it costs 200 hours here. On implementation side, if we knew this during the implementation, it would be only 50 hours because we wouldn't do something else at that time, which we implemented and turned out to be incorrect. And of course, if you go back to the design, much cheaper to meddle around with a bunch of buttons there compared to having the whole implementation, deployment, the whole thing going through later on. Of course, from the technical aspects, with the APIs, with the backends, with the technologies, it's all the same, okay? We're talking about graphical design, but of course, you can clearly see the same approaches are problematic also in purely implementational point of view of developing an app. So if we discuss the problem space versus the solution space, here we're talking about what kind of problems we're trying to, you know, solve. Let's first figure out what kind of problems there are, then figure out what kind of problems are worth tackling in our opinion. Maybe like it all could also be not connected directly to money. It could be directed to greater good, any other reason, and so on. And of course, if there is no solution, like just check, okay? Go around, do your related work, go see apps, go Google it, because Google will show you a lot of similar apps. Make sure that you figure out that there is not this exact solution tackling the same problem. Or it might be, and it could have a lot of interesting features which could be applied. For example, if we're discussing touch efficacy, could be applied to this specific area. You can take a look at applications from the US or maybe Scandinavian countries and figure out, oh, they did solve some specific issues which we are tackling right now in my area, in my country. How can we use this? Okay? It's not necessarily bad if there's a solution already available, and it's not necessarily the only aspect which makes a solution viable or maybe could turn into money. For example, Xerox, you know them, they made the first graphical interface. You don't know them, yeah, because then they made printers and then they died. That's it. Let's say maybe shorten the story. It's not that bad, but you know what I mean, right? But you do know Apple, you do know Microsoft, okay? Because they have operating systems, and Xerox had this a few years before, but they didn't monetize. Or maybe they didn't go through this process. But somebody had this brilliant idea and made it a few years before other competitors. How you can use this, this is also a question. And of course, in the solution space, let's figure out whether this solution is actually working well. We might have an idea that we did a great solution to something, and then figure out, yeah, but nobody knows how to use it. A colleague of yours had a brilliant thing. I think he was using Adobe Lightroom on the phone. And he said it's really terrible because there is no way to just take a photo and then put it into the list of whatever photos they have. It turns out it's the two screens forward and on the bottom left part, but not on the view where all the images were shown, for example. Okay? So you might have a solution, but not necessarily tackling the right problem in the right way. Of course, you always have to, let's say, evaluate what you're doing, even while you're doing it, and especially after you're doing it. And we'll talk about how we can get this data later on during this presentation. So you probably know all about qualitative methods because you've done it in high school, you've done it during your other classes and courses at this faculty, I would assume. You did some questionnaires, you send it out, you get some information back. Usually these questionnaires for diplomas and stuff like that are made in a way that are not exactly unbiased and are kind of confirming what people are trying to hear, right? We usually do it this way. And we always send it to our friends who will always say, yeah, I would totally buy your solution. It's the best thing I've ever heard because I love you and you're a great friend. And, you know, it's usually like that, right? So we do have some traps there we'll discuss later. We try to send it to a large number of participants, but do we really obtain a large number of participants? And of course, another thing, do these participants who we are actually trying to address actually respond to us? There's one joke going on that 99% of people who were surveyed via telephone answered that they love surveys via telephone, right? But maybe we're not asking the right people. Or if you have for example, if you have a club and you have club members, and you ask club members, what do you love about this club? And they will tell you all about it. And then you're trying to figure out, I'm doing all the right things, right? But actually, I'm not asking the people who decided not to join why they aren't joining, right? So in a way, yeah, we do this a lot of times, and you've done it probably for some seminars also, the faculty, and maybe at high school where you did some seminars and somebody told you, yeah, you have to gather some information and then we'll do some statistics. And of course, when we get to statistics and we look for patterns, we also might do a lot of weird things with it. For example, taking wrong statistical tests which assume normal distribution and we don't have a normal distribution, right? Like Professor for statistics would tell you more about that. This is one of the assumptions which a lot of people do also at the academic level, which is completely wrong, and we use the statistics for support rather than for enlightenment, like a drunk person, right? This is a huge issue. And of course, sometimes we see patterns where there are no patterns. People are programmed to see patterns where there are no patterns because we have to, filter out all the information around us, even like 10, 20, 50,000 years ago when we went hunting or whatever, right? And we still have this in us, that we do not actually see in the same statistical manner as the statistics would tell us. So it's really necessary to do this in a non-biased way, and then every time we analyze the data, analyze it not to just confirm our own hypothesis, but also to try and disprove them. And with qualitative methods, which are kind of undervalued, we have a more direct communication with the people, right? We can ask, like we have focus groups, for example. You know what focus groups are? Like you ask 5 people to sit around and start asking them questions. And they will start telling you their stories with a specific process, maybe more in general. How do you go to work every day? Oh yeah, I use car. Okay, great. Why are you using the car? How long does it take for you to get to work? Oh, it takes me half an hour. There's a lot of traffic. Okay. And then you go on and on and on and figure out, oh yeah, they're not using, for example, bike sharing. Okay, might be weather, might be lack of public transport, which you are probably well acquainted with because you're using number 18 here, the bus, right? Which is kind of problematic.
14.
Oh yeah, number 14, where you have to have like really high boots to come across all the mud to the faculty from the other side. And for example, they start telling you this story, and then you can gather these insights. And then you get this latent information where you don't have the ability to get to this depth and quality of information with questionnaires which are more broad. Even if they're specific, they will not tell you. And you can also figure out what kind of expressions they make, what kind of response there is in terms of maybe emotional aspect, in terms of the length of the response compared to questionnaires. And it's quite undervalued because you can also get this information for a really specific subject or a feature where the REC questionnaire, would you like to have this feature? No, would not answer you this question. Motivation. Motivation is something where, when using questionnaires, might be a bit more problematic, a bit more difficult to obtain. Again, connected to emotional responses, you cannot really see whether somebody is really engaged with the questionnaire. It's really difficult to see that. Somebody will write a really long, maybe, response, feedback to your questionnaire, but these are the outliers usually. Somebody who's really thrilled with it, or somebody who really hates the experience of using your product or your application. In a way, both areas of discovery methods are really important, but again, right tool for the right job. And qualitative research is something which is undervalued also in our maybe more computer science research. We don't use them that much. Even when we do have a specific set of participants, we usually do qualitative research because it's easier to prove or disprove, in a way, our hypothesis. So if we take a look at this mind map, we can see that under qualitative research we have user interviews, stakeholder interviews. So let's ask everybody in the whole chain or the process of whatever, for example, buying a used car. Let's ask people who are actually taking in the contracts, who are doing the technical inspections. Let's ask people who are selling new cars and maybe taking old for new and then selling your old car further on. Let's ask people who do insurance, who do leasing, and so on. In this case, the evaluative aspect is concept validation. You can do usability testing much easier with this. You can also figure out very specific information about your user interfaces, your graphic design, in a way that with quantitative testing, it would be much more difficult. It would be indicative in a way that you could figure out there is a problem, but it's much easier to ask people in person, what's your problem? Why aren't you performing this specific action? Or maybe give them a specific task and see how it goes. Of course, on the other side, when we do, for example, market research, it's much easier to tackle the numbers because you don't have the access to every person in every branch of every area or every part of the chain of a specific process you're trying to tackle. When you're doing desktop research, for example, basically related work, you sit down, you figure out what kind of stuff there is, read about it, learn about it. In a way, you as a computer developer, a scientist, maybe engineer, product manager, whatever it's going to be, you will be the person who will need to know this information about a specific product, which would not be a technical product by default. It could be something which has nothing to do with technology. It could be something which is very niche in a technological way, and you will have to know all this information because you'll probably be developing a product for another client who maybe they think they have all the information, but they don't. And we'll get to that and figure out that maybe your client or your boss might not be the best judge of what's good and what should be done, but the user should be. Of course, A/B tests, you know them. You've probably performed them before. Analytics. The problem is here that you can get a lot of information, for example, from A/B tests. You've probably been a part of this with Google services where somebody gets a new interface, the other one gets a bit of a different interface, and at the end, they figure out which interface is, let's say, better, works better, and so on. But you have to develop, implement, go into production, and it kind of costs money because you get the information, like historical information. So this was better before, or this is better now, or this might not be better, but we spend so much money and so much effort to get to this point. Maybe sometimes you can just go and ask the user, oh yeah, there's an issue, please address it, right? Let me just quickly check the Discord. Is there any questions at the moment? Okay, no. In terms of product validation, yeah, we'll probably get to this point, right? To first three. So first validate the problem. Let's see what the problem is and figure out whether that's really a problem. Maybe I just feel like it. I wrote it into the project description and you'll be like, oh yeah, I have to make the professor happy. This should be a problem. No, okay, not necessarily. I am not the one to judge. You will be the judge of that if you actually tackle the problem and validate the problem and provide some argumentation why this is so, okay? And you can do this. And don't only lean on the stuff I've wrote in the project description. Go and look broader and look further from that. Okay, validate the market. You have to figure out what the market is, what your target audience is. You might figure out that you have a target audience, but it's too small at the end for the fourth point, willingness to pay, having actually to monetize this. For example, Troubadour platform, which is also one of the projects. Yeah, it's great, but can I really sell it? Or should I really sell it? Of course, our intention is not to sell it or make people pay for it. We did a lot of things for visually impaired and blind people. It's such a small group that no company will go and tackle this. On the other hand, maybe you know Neo from Telecom, you know the setup box for TV. Have you used their remote? It's small, it's black, with black keys, with no indentation or whatever, no haptic response, with dark blue labels on them. And you can buy a bigger one with the actual keys because this one just has previous and next and microphone to talk to, okay? And I asked them, why are you, because the bigger ones are the same, basically, they just have a lot of numbers, but you cannot really see what you're pressing. And I asked them, why are you making such remote controller designs, right? And they said, sir, this remote controller received a first prize at some German design award, whatever thing, okay? And I said, yeah, of course, it's beautiful, but your target audience is 90 years old, okay? So maybe you have a beautiful solution, but the problem is that your target audience is not 15-year-olds who would say, oh yeah, this is such a nice, or maybe 40-year-olds who would like to have this beautiful setup box in their living room, like it really lights up the place with the logo and whatever, right? You understand the problem, right? So figure out if you have the market and then validate the product. Okay, I made the remote controller, I figured out that it's kind of not working and people are going to my competitor because, yeah, I don't have certain functionalities, or maybe I have a beautiful setup box, but it doesn't work because it doesn't have, for example, subtitles, which is also a problem with telecom if you try to use it. Or I have a lot of experience setting up this for old people, apparently. And you figure out that, yeah, maybe that's an issue. And maybe telecom should ask themselves, are we really selling the TV to an audience who watches TV? If you figure out, do you have a TV at home, like set-top box TV, like Neo, Telemach, Neo, Aeon, and others? Do you have it? Do you watch it? No, right? Do your parents actually watch it?
No, only it's
Yeah, they usually, even your parents, who are maybe in your way much older than you, tend not to watch TV as much, okay? And the problem is that what they're doing is they usually provide a whole package of different services, like internet, and you have phones. Oh, and you get a TV with Excel, scheme, whatever. But then, at a certain point, you figure out you don't actually need this. You don't actually use this. You just pay for it, right? And I think they know that's why they do this, like Trojček and other things, like other packages you can see when you go and just want to buy optical connection. And that's it usually, or maybe just a mobile phone. But on the other hand, the problem is, do we have a product which is applicable to a specific market? Can we actually say, oh yeah, this is a great product because somebody will, at the end, be willing to pay for it, right? And there's another problem here, which we'll not discuss so thoroughly, because maybe that's more like a project management / informatics course, which you can choose and attend, where you'll, or economics course, I think you can also choose, where you'll discuss how to monetize this, of course. But on the other hand, you have to be aware that the people you're usually asking if they're willing to pay, they'll usually say, yeah, sure, because you're my friend, of course I'll pay for it, right? But will they really pay for it once you put so much effort, so many hours, and so much money into it? Are they really willing to pay? We had the discussion in the last class, and some people said, yeah, if the recommender for Spotify, let's say, whatever, was better, we be willing to pay more. Would you? Right?
YouTube, the most cheapest app of all music app, and you also can watch video without
Which one?
YouTube.
YouTube, yeah, for example. You can watch videos, but the problem is ads.
Yeah, without ads, yeah, if you pay for YouTube Premium.
Yeah, and
Without-
YouTube Premium is much more, it's around 10 euros, I think, 9
How
euros.
much?
9 euros per month, yeah.
Sorry, because I'm here in Ukrainian university and I pay only €1.50.
Okay, so you'll be making an account for me. Okay, great. So I know, like €1.50, okay, that's great. But on the other hand, it's around, I think it's 9.50, something like that.
Yeah.
But it does have, in a way, for me, who deals in academic or research sense with recommender systems, it does have a better recommender compared to Spotify, and much better compared to Apple, because at Apple Music I have to type in the exact name of the song, otherwise I won't get any search hits, for example, right? And the question is, how much are you willing actually to pay for a better recommender, for example, for music? Or how much are you willing to pay if I gave you, instead of auto-log report, if I gave you some additional information? Let's say I have insurance information, okay, about car crashes, so I know if the car was damaged, if the car was totaled, which basically means don't buy this car, for example, right? And we already have this service, for example. You can go to National Automobile Association, pay 100 euros, and they will fully check your car. They will check whether it was crash damaged. They will check the steel, if it's original paint, if it's everything's still there, and blah blah blah. It costs 100 euros. Most people don't use this service, even though they're buying something for 10, 20,000 euros. Okay? So the willingness to pay, like in a way of saying, oh yeah, I had 3,000 additional euros of worth of repairs because I bought a car which had some maybe problems. Is 100 euros really that much? Not really. But people are still not willing to pay in general to get this service. So this willingness to pay, even if we say in a completely hypothetical situation, would you rather pay 100 euros to have your car proof that it hasn't been damaged compared to having multiple thousands of euros of unexpected repairs? Everybody would say, of course, 100 euros. I am paying 20,000 for the car. What's 100 euros compared to that, right? In practice, they're not that necessarily that willing to pay for that. And these are maybe the traps. We've already started discussing it. One of it is feeling good. So we have an existing belief. Everybody will check for their car because we have a lot of car frauds. We don't want to, buy a used car which has problems. And of course, I'll find evidence to support that, right? I will ask myself and I'll say, oh yeah, of course, I wouldn't buy that car. Would you buy a car which had like 3,000 additional euros of problems in repairs? Would you buy it?
No, I didn't buy it, but if I have additional money, yes, I will buy it.
Would you buy a checkup for the total, or would you buy a car and then end up with 3,000 euros of additional repairs?
No.
Would you pay 100 euros to have it checked?
Yes.
You would have it checked, yeah. Let's see in practice in a few years when you buy a car, okay? Would you buy it? Yeah, of course. Like everybody would say right now, yeah, 100 euros. Like you're buying a car for 20,000 euros, okay? Slovenian Dreams, Volkswagen Golf 2.0 TDI, this is like, yeah, Slovenian Dreams. Would you buy it? Would you buy insurance in a way for additional 100 euros? Sure, right? Yeah, most people don't, okay? So willingness to pay is a problem. But I just found a lot of evidence of support for my, let's say, hypothesis that everybody will buy it, right? I'll have a mechanical service right here. I'll just build it here. And you'll be able to bring in your car. I'll charge you 100 euros and I'll have it checked. And I just found 5 out of 5 people. This sounds like a toothpaste commercial. 4 out of 5 doctors, right? Or dentists. Yeah, I just found 5 out of 5 people would buy this, right? Okay, on the other hand, we can go and really dig into work, okay? We have people who really go and ask and analyze and gather and analyze and test and then ask again and ask again and ask again. And you've been doing this for 3 months. Are you any closer to the solution? It's really easy to go into the numbers and then figure out that you can go into this negative spiral of maybe proving your assumptions, like biased assumptions, or just working and figuring out that you actually don't really know what the problem is anymore, right? Are you really working on a solution, or are you just running around in circles? And you've probably been in this position before with maybe one of your seminars, or maybe if you work for a company during your student work, you sometimes had a feeling that you're just working, but not coming closer to the goal, right? In terms of, let's say, rules, rule number 1 is my assumptions might be incorrect, your assumptions might be incorrect. Let's ask the user. Let's put the user in the middle. Let's figure out what the user needs, okay? I might not be the most prototypical user. Let's figure out who the user is first and then figure out what the user needs. And everything's going to be a bit clearer from that point on. But, of course, the problem is that you have a boss and you have a client, and maybe you have your own consciousness that says, oh, no, this is different because I was in a different situation. And this is not usually your user. The bigger the company is, the more people you have, and they'll tell you, we know exactly what we need. And they won't tell you the problem, they'll just need somebody to implement their solution. Okay?
But maybe we can create a channel of Reddit and describe the situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can describe what they want to do in this app, future app, what they want to see in this app.
Yeah, but this is already going towards, let's say, having some sort of feedback, having some sort of interviews, figuring out what their specific situations are. But usually your client will just tell you, yeah, we know what we need. And the bigger the company is, the less people in percentage to the amount of people in the company will actually have this vision or have this in-depth insights, what's going on and what should be addressed, okay? And you, in my experience, you can and should go around maybe your clients or the bosses there and figure out what the users are and who the people in this chain of the process are actually worth, let's say, addressing, okay? And who has the information. And it's not necessarily people who are high up in the command or maybe your boss and so on. Figure out who your user is, and your user is usually not you, is usually not your boss, and is usually not your client. All right? Okay, so let's talk a bit about user interviews. What's an interview? Yeah, we talk to someone. Okay, how are you? You're great. How do you attend the faculty every day? You drive maybe a car, you go by bus and so on. Let's talk about it. And we'll see what your issues are. We'll see what your problems are. We'll start figuring out whether there is even a problem behind this, okay? These are my hypotheses, but I have to do them maybe in a way that I get this information in an unbiased aspect out of you and figure out, oh, there is a problem there. Or maybe, okay, for number 18 and number 14, we know there is a problem. But what this problem really is it the proximity to the bus station? Is it the number of buses? Is it the routes they're taking to the city center and to Shishka and so on? You know, like, let's figure it out. You might not be the exact prototypical person, but maybe if I have a focus group, ask 5 people and ask different people at different stages of their progress to the faculty, I'll get different responses. And what are they doing? Okay, you're taking a bus or you're taking a bike. You have access to bike sharing services at the location of your home. Or where are you doing this? Are you doing this, or maybe which medium you're using in this case? Or then we get to how, right? How are you doing this? Oh, I take a bike only if the weather's nice, or I take an electric scooter, or there's an issue because you're crossing these really traffic-heavy roads at Cesta na Brdo, or maybe Celoshka, or if you get down to the city center, you might have issues with other things such as pedestrians and so on and so on. Okay, and of course, why? Why are you doing this? Okay, this is not the response. I'll stop attending the faculty lessons in person and I'll just go and watch live stream in this specific case, right? But you know what I mean. And with how and why, people will actually start thinking about it. This is the easy part. You'll get this information maybe even with an online questionnaire, and that's it. With how and why, you'll get the insight. What are they doing? How are they doing? Why are they doing it, right? And of course, assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups. Maybe a nicer version would be when you assume, you make an S out of you and me. You can connect these words into assume, right? We are not supposed to do this in a way that we just confirm our own biases, okay? We have to step back. In the same manner as we spoke about analytics and quantitative research, where we said, okay, maybe you should take a step back and look at the numbers and not just try and see your own patterns, because we'll see patterns where there are no patterns. In this case, also take a step back and figure out, maybe this person has to tell me, like wants to tell me something, but I'm not listening to it because I'm just trying to confirm my biases and my hypothesis, okay? This is really, really important. And of course, there is also a to-do list how to do this, right? Let's figure out how to write this, maybe plan for an interview. Let's write down these assumptions. Okay, my assumption is there's an issue with coming to the faculty. Maybe more students would attend faculty lessons or classes in person if there was a better connection. That's an assumption. Or maybe people will be less annoyed and have more energy and more engagement if they didn't have to take the bus number 18 with 20 or 200 other people at the same time, or and so on and so on. Okay. Form questions that will test these assumptions, and of course, go from broad to narrow. Don't start with, oh, so your problem is that the bus is filled up and you have to attend, if you know what I mean, right? Go a bit broader and listen to the person you're interviewing, so you'll figure out what the actual story behind is, and you won't just listen to your echo, you know, like we usually do, and all the social media is doing a great job of letting us do that, right? And of course, before you go and ask the user, test your questionnaire, like ask another colleague of yours, try it out, you know, like figure out whether they even understand the question. We have a lot of these questions which maybe are written in a way, in a sense, that people around you from within, maybe let's say, your specific topic of expertise or your specific area where within your product's reach understand it, but maybe you're addressing people who don't understand these questions, who don't even have the vocabulary to express themselves for a specific situation, or maybe you're asking the questions in a way that they wouldn't be able to respond to that. So if you are addressing product quality of OEM parts for cars and you ask your mother about it, she will have no idea. But if you ask her, are there any issues if you're using this mechanic shop instead of like an official one, whatever it is, she might be able to tell you, oh yeah, but I have to change some specific parts every year. And then you'll go into this direction. Don't ask too specific questions and don't ask questions which cannot be understood. So you have to maybe test out the questionnaire a bit before, because you'll see that some questions are very natural to you, very understandable to you, might not be to somebody else. And of course, then upgrade. You can always improve it. And of course, we are not very good at posing questions, because like for the first 12 years of your elementary and high school, you were told just to be quiet and sit down, right? In a way. Maybe at the academic level, more questions are encouraged. Even maybe questions which are repeated, and we still want you to understand something, and you can ask and ask and ask. And ask broader, broader, broader. Don't ask only the stuff which we, for example, lecturers want to hear. You can ask questions which are, oh, is this really true? How about da 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 da? Okay? But on the other hand, we're not really good at it because we are kind of programmed into not posing questions, not being the ones who are the loud ones in the classroom and so on. Is this true for the boys? Maybe more than the girls, or
So
huh?
I don't think so.
No,
No.
no. You have a feeling that you were able to ask a lot of different questions during your elementary school and high school, and
Yeah, because if I don't ask as a question, I cannot to make the right on 100% my job work, and it's really.
what's that work? What are you doing?
I study applied linguistics in my university.
What did you study?
Applied linguistics.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is coming more from humanities side, maybe?
It combines
Yeah.
languages and computer science.
Yeah, yeah.
And you need to ask a lot of questions because it's really interesting field of study, and it's.
But were you good at the beginning compared to later years to do this? Or did you improve?
I improved.
Yeah. So at the beginning, we might take this assumption maybe too much for granted compared to maybe linguistics or humanities in particular. But especially in technical aspects, we maybe don't ask that many questions, and we should. But of course, you improve because you were in a way pushed out of your comfort zone into this aspect, right? We again have maybe a cheat sheet how to not mess it up, even though we are not maybe that good at asking questions. First, aim to learn, not to confirm. So ask questions and hear the story, hear the feedback, not just hear the echo chamber around you. Know what you don't know. Yeah, figure out what you don't know. You can learn about it, but maybe you can have another person help you. And learn your blind spots. Maybe you don't have the access to the whole target audience you're trying to address. Maybe you have a specific issue with addressing a specific problem which is so latent that people who you're talking to might not be able to address in a certain way, as we discussed. Of course, context is king. Why? If I ask about cycling to the faculty every day using a bike share, it's a completely different question compared to, do you like cycling? Oh yeah, sure. I'm a professional cyclist. Okay, do you cycle to work? Oh God, no. I do this for a living, you know, like in this way, if you understand. So we have to make sure that we understand the context around the interview and the questions. And of course, look for behavior. Look what kind of story you hear. Maybe even the emotional aspect of it. Listen to the engagement of the user during their conversation, right? Figure out what kind of behavior about the users you can learn from these questions, right? So there might be more user stories or different user stories compared to the ones you were working under the assumptions when you provided the hypothesis, and so on. And this is like a great, let's say, a to-do list to figure out how to do this, even maybe if we say, I'm not very good at posing questions. The devil's in the details. Yes, of course. In a perfect world, the perfect validation in a way would be, let's take 3 different methods and figure out if we get the same results. We can start, let's say, with, let's ask the user. Okay, great, we asked them. We did something. Let's see if our analytics of our product, or maybe the questionnaires or whatever, give us the same result. Is this the same thing the user was describing? Oh yeah, maybe. Oh, we have a huge dropout rate at the specific point because blah, blah, blah. Okay, and the user told us, oh, I have no idea how to enable this function. Then you have observation. We can ask them to record screens. We can ask them, perform these specific tasks and see what they're doing. We can do this in focus groups. We can do this with screen recordings. We can do this with, in this way, also the analytics which will tell us or indicate this problem, okay? And if all, or let's say multiple methods combined show us the same result or problem, there might be a problem there, right? Which is really worth addressing. Not only in this first phase we're working on, but also later on where this double diamond starts repeating itself throughout. Okay, so we have maybe, let's say, because it's I was a bit longer than I was supposed to, 10 minutes from assumptions to questions. I will show you the FigJam board. It's this one, where we can go through, let's say, prototype of an interview with users. You can work together. Maybe she already read the project description, so you have the advance. For you, start reading really fast and figure out what kind of questions would you like. We can go into any direction with the project right now, but for your homework, you'll go into one of the 4 directions I've given you. And read this through and figure out, okay, how will we do this? What are the assumptions of my project? What will be the questions that will confirm or deny this? Let's test the questionnaire. Like, you can test with them, you know, and then they can test with you. Just figure out maybe if you have different topics, does this work or not? And of course, you have the who, when, what, why, and how, open-ended questions, because then you'll hear the user's experience, personal experience. Yes or no, yeah, we can get this with the questionnaires, right? And be kind, be curious, listen, and have fun. Okay, let's go. Let's say maybe I'll shorten this to 10 minutes because we still have. Discord vprašanje, sekunda. Če lahko po zaključku live streama posnetek ostane objavljen. Ja, zdaj ne vem, če bo na tem linku takoj, zato ker mislim, da YouTube nekaj časa procesira live stream. Definitivno ga bom pol tudi obesil na učilnico. Če ne, pa snemamo tudi offline kartice, če slučajno ne bi ti šlo čez, pa bomo seveda naložili posnetek magari na YouTube. In potem vidimo. Miha Ciglar pleše z Miško. Kdo je to? A to je en od nas, od naših tukaj. Vprašanje na Discordu regarding the project from the previous assignment. Could we keep working in this team of 4 instead of 3? Yes, you can. So last year I was trying to be strict and saying like there should be 3 in a team, but then there were so many exceptions then that this year I just decided, and I told this information I think during the first lecture, that you can retain the same themes you were involved with during the first half of the semester.
So up to 4 people.
The same team.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have a team of 4 people.
we can.
Yeah, you can retain it.
Yeah.
Can we be Han Solo?
Are you sure you want to be?
I appreciate the challenge.
Okay. You were also solo during the first half, or?
No,
Okay. And so I think I addressed this. I hope you heard me. Kuresi Sirizi. Just acknowledge if everything is clear now. Okay. Yeah, no worries about the nickname. I'm just, yeah, I just had a difficulty correctly pronouncing the name. All right, 3 minutes left. It's going to be a bit more difficult to address maybe the results of this exercise, especially for people who are listening to us or watching us over the live stream. But it's an interesting exercise. I'm sure Amedea will have a bunch of different exercises also for next week. So I, of course, warmly welcome all of you who are watching us over live stream. We still have a lot of seats left in this session. Last session was kind of like, I'd say, yeah, there were still some seats left because we have more than 15 seats in the classroom. But for the second session, of course, you are warmly welcome to participate live because it's going to be much, much easier for you and much more, I would say, productive. So maybe we'll just briefly discuss, because there's two groups right now here, what kind of questions you wrote down, what kind of assumptions you had. Did you discuss the projects which you're assigned to for this half of the semester, or something different?
Yeah, I mean, for this semester, we will pick the same group from before.
Okay, but considering the interviews. I'm sorry I haven't given you more time because we have a bit of a maybe time management problem from my side. But did you discuss the project? Did you discuss the assumptions you have? How would you interview them? Not yet. Okay. How about you?
I haven't any idea.
Okay. But have you decided at least on the topic? Maybe I'll write down that I have to maybe put a bit more stress in my email, where I'll also discuss, put all the links on the Učilnica, and maybe indulge you into reading the project descriptions which are posted there. Most of the people, I think, were informed at the lectures about the information they can gather from Učilnica, and I did see that some people already checked that part because they also saw the Discord link with the invite.
When it is this topic, is one of the most common exams like YouTube, Spotify, TikTok?
There are 4 different topics specifically, and you have a whole document with the description of the projects there.
Is this one?
With regards, sorry?
This one?
No. This is just the part for the exercise here, but if you go on Učilnica,
Okay.
you will see that. I will maybe stress out this in my next email even more, so you'll be able to maybe read this through, because we will quite progress through all these aspects of the product design, and I really want you to work on a weekly basis on your projects, instead of just coming at the end of the semester saying, oh, I did this, you know. And there's a whole methodology behind it, how you can do it better.
Do we have grades for our first project and?
For the first half of the semester,
Yeah.
you have to address this with Professor Bulzon, because
He check our project. Yeah.
she, like, the professor is a girl, Narvika Bulzon.
As well, I think it's Blas Medeni.
Blaž Medeni is an assistant, but yeah, it's a bit of a different situation where you have lab sessions where you discuss the theoretical part, and then you have the correcture within the lecture time slot, I think. But that's specific to that subject and her way of doing. And you have to maybe ask Professor Narvika Boucon about the grades, because she'll give you the grade for your first half of the semester. I'll give you the grade for the second, and the final grade will be a combination of both projects. But you have to write an email to her, because I have no...
Sarah, can you write a mail on the desk for her mail, please?
Yeah, if you go on Učilnica, there is a link directly there. You can just click it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there is a link there.
Great.
No.
Ah.
No, back.
Ah, this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is your professor for the first half of the semester. Okay. Maybe you met her at the lectures, I guess, if you had this correcture session. I assume you had, but yeah. Okay. So we'll briefly continue. We can see that there are still some issues with the first half of the semester, which I cannot address. Also, for the people who are watching this via live stream, if you have questions about your first projects which you did during the first part of the semester, please address this with Professor Narvika Boucon. You have her email, of course, on Učilnica. So I have no influence or jurisdiction over that part of the semester. So she will give you a grade in terms of percentage, and we will calculate both halves together, and then you'll get a final grade. And of course, there was another question earlier on. I don't know if everybody heard it. There is no exam at the end. The project is the exam in terms of the grade. Okay? But you have to apply for exam time slot in Studis in order for me to give you a grade after you successfully pass with the project, because then I have this action ability of providing a grade for you. Okay. We will just briefly discuss your homework for this week. I will also write maybe extensive instructions on Učilnica, so people next week won't have the issue of not doing their homework, and hopefully everybody will see it and everybody will understand it. So with your group, if there's 4 of you in a group or whatever it is, make at least 2 interviews. If there's 4 of you, you can make 3, of course, because there's more than 3 people in your group. Write down your assumptions, follow the guidelines. You had the guidelines here. You will also have this materials on Učilnica. You will also have the live stream, hopefully within the next half an hour, as a permanent recording posted to Učilnica at the same link. And please do this in FigJam. And your homework should be a link posted. I will just write first mini. With FigJam, you can just post the link and I'll check your FigJam file. Okay? I'll write the instructions again. Yeah. I'll just write this down. So hopefully, also for those who are watching via the live stream, if you have any questions with regards to that, you can post them in Discord, and we can try and answer within the live streaming. Otherwise, please, before next Monday, it will be open until Sunday, make these 2 interviews. First, figure out what the projects, what the topic you've chosen from those 4 projects which are posted on Učilnica. Then figure out what your assumptions are, which are not necessarily my assumptions, which are in a way entwined into the project description. Then do the user interviews. First test them, of course, then do them with somebody who might be a good representative of your target audience. Follow the guidelines, and of course, write down both the interviews as you saw it in this FigJam I've showed you before, and the responses. You can do this through personas. You can say, okay, this is an avatar of a person who's 25 years old, attends our faculty. We figured out that they use, or he, she, whatever, uses a car, or maybe a bike, or maybe so on. And these are the issues that were raised, and we have these and these insights into what's going on in his or her life in terms of maybe commute, if you're doing for Touch and See, or if you're doing for Autolog topic, the interviews will be something similar to what kind of issues are there with buying a used car. You have to figure out, like, ask somebody who had this experience. Don't ask somebody who never had the experience of buying a car, of course. So you have to figure out who to ask, and then you have to figure out maybe for Troubadour if they are the perfect target audience. Somebody maybe who's an adult who wants to learn music and they want to do this remotely by themselves. In a way, Duolingo does it, for example, how we can accommodate their path or their journey through the learning process with the support of our app, for example. Okay? Any questions? Also, if there are any questions on Discord, at this moment there are none, but if some occur, yeah, please let me know. So, to final slides, people ignore design that ignores people, and you've probably seen that before. You might get really annoyed with some systems you use maybe every few months when you have to figure out again how to use a specific action, which is always the same, but it's really annoying, so you kind of tend to forget it, and then you have to relearn it, for example. You probably already have this experience. And of course, let's put user into the middle of everything and figure out what the user needs, not what you need, not what your boss needs, not me as the product owner, what I need. It could be completely wrong, okay? It's up to you to provide some strong arguments to figure out who the users are and what the users need. All right? So that's it for today. Thank you for attending this lab session. Next Monday, Amedea will be with us and we'll continue on this journey of product design. If there are any additional questions on Discord, apparently not at this moment. From tomorrow on, I will have consultation lab sessions at the time slots which are given on my schedule. You can check it. I'm Mateusz Pisak. You can click my name and you can see all the lab sessions I have. Please write me an email if you want to attend or you intend to attend a consultative lab session where we will personally discuss your issues or your problems or your challenges, or if you have any additional questions. We can also do this remotely. If you cannot attend it in person, yeah, write me an email. I'll send you a link and we'll just use a Google Meet or whatever to communicate. All right? Okay. Thank you for attending and see you on Thursday at the lectures, which will be held in Slovene. So for Erasmus students, maybe these workshops we will also hold in English. For the lectures we'll have in Slovene.
Can I visit Monday lectures for visiting in English, that held in English?
These lab sessions on these two time slots at 1500 hours and at 1700 hours will be apparently held in English, because if there is any Erasmus student for the first lab session, we also had it in English because there were a few Erasmus students. So yeah, you're welcome to come and we'll hold it in English. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming and see you on Thursday at 2 p.m. Thanks, and we're concluding this live stream. Hvala.